Have you ever caught yourself in a spiral of thoughts that feels impossible to escape? You keep thinking, analyzing, planning, replaying. You want answers, clarity, peace, but instead you just feel exhausted, disconnected, numb, like your brain is on fire but your heart went silent. Here's the truth. You're not overthinking because you're broken. You're overthinking because a part of you has been cut off. And that split between what you feel and what you think is where your suffering begins. We often blame our pain on thinking too much, but Jung would say, thinking isn't the problem. The problem is thinking in isolation. Thinking that's disconnected from your instincts, from your emotions, from your unconscious. Carl Jung described neurosis, which today often shows up as anxiety, burnout, and overthinking, as the tension between consciousness and the unconscious. He believed that when your conscious self, the you who tries to be rational, productive, polite, becomes too cut off from your deeper emotional truth, the psyche starts to rebel. And it rebels in a very specific way, with mental loops, worry, doubt, endless scenarios, all meant to protect you, but ultimately they just trap you. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. So where does this split come from? It starts early. Most of us grew up in environments, families, schools, cultures, where emotion wasn't safe. You were praised for being smart, for being good, for being in control. But when you were scared, angry, or sad, you were told to calm down, to not be so dramatic, to think before you speak. So you learned, thinking is safe, feeling is dangerous. You started living from the neck up. You built your identity around being rational, capable, fine. But what you really built was a fortress of thoughts, to protect the parts of you that weren't welcome. Inside, you're still grieving, still longing, still afraid. But you've locked those parts of you in the basement. And now your thoughts are working overtime trying to keep the door shut. Overthinking is not a flaw. It's a defense mechanism. Alex is 28. On the outside, he has it together. A good job, impressive degree, highly analytical. People come to him for advice. But at night, he can't sleep. His mind races. What if I didn't do enough today? Should I have said that in the meeting? Am I falling behind? He tells himself it's just stress. But the truth? He hasn't cried in 8 years. He can't remember the last time he felt safe being vulnerable. Alex is not thinking because he's smart. He's thinking because he's scared. Because the part of him that feels lost or tired or not good enough was never allowed to exist. Jung believed that the psyche is always trying to move toward wholeness. Even your anxiety has a purpose. Even your overthinking is a signal, not a sickness. It says, you've been too far in one direction. Come back to center. You've ignored your body, your intuition, your soul. Come back. Think of overthinking like an alarm going off. The noise isn't the problem. The noise is trying to tell you something deeper needs your attention. But we rarely listen. We try to outthink the noise. We double down on control. More plans, more lists, more podcasts, more self-help. But the solution is not more thinking. The solution is integration. The first step to healing overthinking is not fixing your thoughts. It's feeling what your thoughts are trying to avoid. Here's the question no one wants to ask. What would you feel if you weren't overthinking right now? Lonely? Powerless? Afraid you're not enough? That you'll never be loved if you fail? That you're wasting time? These feelings aren't the enemy. They're invitations. To reconnect with the parts of you you've exiled. To finally meet yourself, all of yourself. Try this tonight. Instead of spiraling in your thoughts, ask yourself, what am I afraid to feel right now? Let the answer come. Without judgment. Without fixing it. Just witness it. This is the beginning of individuation, the journey Jung spoke of, the process of becoming your whole self. Here are 3 small practices to start softening the overthinking loop. Don't analyze it. Just name it. I feel overwhelmed. I feel scared I'll fail. I feel disconnected. When you name it, you reclaim it. It's no longer hiding behind thought. Before you jump into, what should I do? Stop. Ask, what part of me is speaking right now? Is it your inner child? Your perfectionist? Your abandoned self? Let them speak before you try to silence them. Overthinking pulls you into the head. Your healing is in the body. Place a hand on your chest. Breathe slowly. Feel your feet. Move. Cry. Dance. Emotion needs motion. If your mind is always racing, if you feel stuck in a loop you can't escape, you don't need to think better. You need to come home. To your body. To your emotions. To the parts of you you left behind. You don't need more logic. You need more wholeness. Because you are not your thoughts. You are the space underneath them. And when you make room for your whole self, the mind finally quiets down, not because you silenced it, but because it finally felt heard. Absolutely. Here is the full script for Chapter 2, The False Safety of Control, Why Overthinking Feels Addictive, continuing the same style, tone, and depth as Chapter 1, designed to deeply resonate with young adults facing anxiety and overthinking. Why do we cling so hard to overthinking? Why do we repeat the same anxious questions, the same what-ifs, the same endless mental lists? Because overthinking feels like control. Control means safety. Safety means survival. Our brains have evolved to keep us alive by anticipating threats, real or imagined. When you're anxious, your mind fires warning signals. What if I fail? What if they leave? What if I'm not enough? And the way your brain tries to quiet that alarm? It thinks its way out. It tries to solve the problem. But here's the catch. Your brain can't solve an emotional problem with logic alone. Many of us learned control the hard way. Maybe you grew up in an unpredictable home, where emotions felt unsafe or chaotic. Maybe you experienced rejection, neglect, or criticism for showing vulnerability. In response, your psyche said, if I can control everything, my thoughts, my actions, my emotions, then maybe I won't get hurt. Control becomes a shield. But it's a fragile one. The more you try to control your inner and outer world, the more anxious you become. Because control is an illusion. Jenna is 24. A high achiever, she makes detailed plans for every aspect of her life. Career, relationships, health. Her calendar is color-coded, her to-do list's endless. But underneath the surface, Jenna feels frozen. She's terrified of making the wrong choice. She stays stuck in indecision, paralyzed by fear of failure. Her overthinking isn't about being smart. It's about desperately trying to feel safe in a world that often feels unpredictable. Overthinking creates a vicious cycle. You feel anxious. Your mind searches for answers. It finds no final answer because emotions aren't logical puzzles. You feel more anxious, so you think more. Repeat. This loop is exhausting, and it makes you feel like a prisoner in your own mind. But it's important to remember, your anxiety isn't random. It's your nervous system trying to keep you safe. It just doesn't have better tools yet. Another hidden driver of overthinking is shame. Many people who overthink carry a deep, silent belief. If I'm not perfect, I'm not worthy. So the mind becomes hypervigilant, always monitoring, criticizing, doubting. It's trying to avoid mistakes that might bring rejection or failure. But this self-criticism backfires. It fuels the anxiety even more. It makes you doubt your value. and it feeds the very overthinking you want to escape. Here's the hard truth. You cannot control everything. Not your thoughts, not other people, not the future. But, and this is key, you can control your relationship with control. You can learn to let go, not by giving up, but by choosing what's worth your energy. By surrendering to uncertainty. This surrender isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Jung believed that the ego's need to control blinds us to the vastness of the unconscious. When we loosen our grip, we open space for healing, insight, and true inner peace. What situations make you feel you have to control everything? Write them down. Awareness is the first step. Instead of perfect, aim for good enough. Allow mistakes. They are part of learning and growth. Start with small things. Let someone else plan the weekend. Turn off your phone for an hour. Say, I don't know, without panic. When your mind races, bring attention to your body. Feel your feet on the ground. Take slow breaths. This signals your brain you're safe. The endless need to control your thoughts and your world is a prison, not a sanctuary. Freedom comes not when you have all the answers, but when you accept that some answers will come in time, and some never will. Your mind's job is to protect you, yes, but your growth comes when you trust yourself enough to release control, to face uncertainty with courage, and to learn that true safety lies inside you, not in your thoughts. Have you ever noticed how your own thoughts sometimes feel like your worst enemy? How the voice inside your head criticizes, judges, and tears you down, louder than anyone else ever could. That voice is not you. It's your inner critic, and it's connected to something much deeper, your shadow. Carl Jung called the shadow the parts of ourselves we reject, deny, or hide. But when ignored, the shadow doesn't disappear. It takes control from behind the scenes. And one way it shows up is in that harsh, unrelenting inner voice. The inner critic is the voice that tells you, you're not good enough. You'll never succeed. Why did you mess that up again? This voice is harsh, relentless, and often disguised as helpful advice. It claims to protect you by keeping you vigilant, careful, and realistic. But in reality, the inner critic controls you by feeding your fears and insecurities. It traps you in cycles of self-doubt and overthinking. Jung's idea of the shadow helps us understand why the inner critic is so powerful. The shadow is the unconscious part of ourselves that holds the feelings, impulses, and traits we've rejected, often because they were painful or unacceptable. When we don't face or accept these parts, the shadow grows stronger in secrecy. The inner critic is one way the shadow tries to protect us, by warning us away from what it sees as danger, often our own vulnerability. But this protection is a double-edged sword. It isolates us from our full self and deepens inner conflict. Mia is 26. She constantly tells herself she's lazy, unworthy, and a failure, especially when she feels anxious or uncertain. Her inner critic runs on repeat, making her overthink every interaction, every mistake. But Mia doesn't realize these thoughts are not her truth. They are echoes of her shadow trying to keep her safe by pushing her to be perfect. The more she fights these thoughts, the louder they get. The inner critic thrives in uncertainty. It uses fear to trap you in mental loops. Did I say the wrong thing? Am I going to mess this up? What if they think I'm stupid? This constant self-judgment makes you hyper-aware and hypercritical. Perfect conditions for overthinking. You're not just analyzing your actions, you're attacking yourself for being imperfect. The first step to breaking free is recognizing when the inner critic is speaking. Ask yourself, is this thought kind or harsh? Does it help me grow or does it tear me down? Is this my truth or a fear-based story I've been told? Once you name the critic's voice, you can start to separate it from your authentic self. Respond to critical thoughts with kindness. Say, I'm doing my best and that's enough. Write down the critical thoughts, then respond as your compassionate self. Ask, what are you afraid of? Understanding your shadow softens the critic. Notice the thought without judgment. Label it, there's the inner critic again. This creates space between you and the thought. Remind yourself, perfection is impossible. Mistakes are growth. Practice good enough rather than flawless. Your inner critic isn't your enemy, it's a wounded part of you trying to protect you in a misguided way. By shining light on your shadow and learning to respond with compassion, you take back your power. You stop the self-attack and break the chains of overthinking. Because healing isn't about silencing your mind, it's about changing the relationship with your mind. Have you ever felt trapped in a storm of thoughts, wishing for peace but unsure how to get there? You're not alone. Many who struggle with overthinking think freedom comes from waiting for the right moment, the perfect solution, or a sudden change. But the real secret? It's discipline. Not harsh self-control or rigidity, but gentle, consistent inner discipline that builds calm and clarity day by day. Discipline isn't punishment. It's self-respect in action. It means choosing what serves you, even when it's hard. It means creating small habits that strengthen your mind, body, and spirit. For overthinkers, discipline helps you break free from mental chaos by training your attention and energy. Jung believed that individuation, becoming your true self, requires conscious effort and consistent inner work. Discipline is that effort. Overthinking hijacks your attention, scattering it in countless directions. Inner discipline helps you reclaim it by setting boundaries on rumination, choosing when and how to engage with your thoughts, creating routines that anchor you in the present. It's like training a wild horse. Without discipline, it runs wild, but with it, it carries you forward. Leo, 28, used to spend hours spiraling in his mind, stuck in anxiety loops about his career and relationships. He decided to try a simple practice. Every morning he wrote down 3 small goals. Nothing big, just doable. He meditated for 5 minutes to calm his mind. He limited social media to 30 minutes a day. At first, it felt like a struggle. But after weeks, Leo noticed a shift. His mind wasn't as noisy. He felt more grounded. Discipline didn't make his worries disappear, but it gave him tools to manage them. Discipline can feel hard because it means facing discomfort. It asks you to stop reacting impulsively. Resist the urge to ruminate endlessly. Commit to self-care even when you feel low. This resistance isn't failure, it's your brain's old survival mode pushing back. But every time you choose discipline, you weaken that resistance and strengthen your freedom. Start with just 3 to 5 minutes a day. Focus on your breath or body sensations to anchor your mind. Allow yourself 10 minutes a day to think about concerns, then consciously move on. Write down your worries to externalize and understand them. This creates distance and perspective. Learn to say no to people or situations that drain your energy. Sleep, nutrition, and exercise affect your mental clarity deeply. Discipline isn't about perfection. It's about small wins that accumulate. Celebrate when you pause a racing thought, say no to overcommitment, or choose rest over stress. Each victory rewires your brain, reduces anxiety, and builds resilience. Discipline is not about control over others, nor harshness toward yourself. It's a gentle, loving act of caring for your mind and soul. By practicing discipline, you create space for peace. You stop being a prisoner of your own mind and become the calm, steady presence you've been seeking. LF growth and overcoming anxiety. Have you ever felt like your mind is at war with itself? Like you're pulled in different directions by conflicting feelings, desires, or fears? This inner conflict is exactly what Carl Jung called a split in the psyche, a division between your conscious self and the parts you don't fully know or accept. Overthinking often comes from this split. When your conscious mind loses contact with your unconscious, confusion and anxiety take over. But here's the good news. Healing this split, integrating all parts of yourself, is the key to escaping the endless loops of overthinking. Jung taught that the psyche is made up of many layers: the conscious mind, the unconscious, and the shadow. When parts of you are rejected or hidden, your psyche becomes divided. This division creates tension, anxiety, and a sense of being stuck. Overthinking is a symptom of this split, your mind trying desperately to make sense of conflicting signals. Integration means bringing all parts of yourself into awareness and acceptance, the light and the shadow. Instead of fighting or ignoring difficult emotions and traits, you learn to understand and embrace them. This doesn't mean giving in to negative patterns. It means recognizing them as parts of your whole self, giving you the power to transform them. Sarah struggled for years with anxiety and overthinking. She felt ashamed of her anger and vulnerability, pushing those feelings away. Through therapy and self-reflection, she began to acknowledge her shadow, the parts she feared and denied. By facing those feelings without judgment, Sarah started to feel whole. Her overthinking lessened because she wasn't fighting herself anymore. Constant inner conflict, feeling disconnected from your emotions, repeating negative thought patterns, difficulty making decisions due to fear or doubt. Recognizing these signs is the first step toward healing. Notice your thoughts and feelings without judgment. Acknowledge discomfort as a signal, not a threat. Write letters or dialogues with parts of yourself you fear or avoid. Talk to trusted friends, mentors, or therapists who can help you explore difficult emotions. Accept that no one is perfect. Your shadow doesn't make you bad, just human. As you integrate your shadow and conscious self, you build inner harmony. This harmony quiets the mind's endless chatter and reduces overthinking. You become more grounded, confident, and at peace, able to face life's challenges without being trapped by fear or doubt. Integration isn't a one-time event. It's a lifelong journey of self-discovery and acceptance. But every step you take toward wholeness is a step away from anxiety and overthinking. Remember, you are more than your worries. You are a complex, whole being, capable of growth, healing, and peace.